Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with Because Bitcoin, and today we are joined by Jim Ski Bum. A lot of you probably know him from Twitter. He's been in a lot of our Twitter spaces, and also him and I like to go back and forth and share some Kaspa charts. And Jim and I were DMing and thought it would be a fun idea for us to collaborate on a pre-recorded video and basically just talk TA. We'll definitely cover a lot of Kaspa, but I think we're going to cover some other coins as well. So be sure to stick around for the entire video. Before we get into the charts, do me a solid. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. And we're going to drop Jim's social medias down below. All right. So first link is going to be his Twitter. Second link is going to be his YouTube. Definitely a great follow. I would highly recommend and encourage everybody, either beginning, middle, or end a video, or maybe even after, head over, follow him both on Twitter and YouTube. His insights are invaluable and absolutely an edge in these markets. So we're going to start with Jim here, actually. This is a very famous Kaspa channel that Jim has been tracking for a while. So Jim, welcome, man. Thrilled that we could do this.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Yeah, looking forward to a discussion here on the charts and the markets, Kaspa, maybe some Bitcoin, and yeah. So let's get into it. What do you want to look at first?
Well, I mean, you've got this beautiful channel pulled up here, and I'm sure a lot of people that are probably watching this video are somewhat familiar with it. So I guess we could start here, man. I mean, you've been in Kaspa for so long. You've been the I mean, dare I say, the community leader as far as TA for Kaspa goes. You've been leading that community and providing clarity from a technical perspective for a long time.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It just seemed to. I don't know how it happened. I got somehow dubbed the Kaspa community leader in some way, as far as, I don't know what, posting charts or just sharing fundamentals that resonated with people, maybe. But yeah, I first got into Kaspa actually literally right here, like at 0.005. And
so is that 20x ago? Is that correct?
I don't know, something like that. Yeah. I mean, I wish I put more into it then. I was still buying other coins. I was in my bear market accumulation mode, and really just stumbled on Kaspa. And what I noticed was that it seemed a lot like Bitcoin in the sense where it was fair launched and it was a proof of work. And I remember popping into the Telegram group pretty early on, like somewhere in here. I don't think I bought it right away. I think I found it and started watching it. It was in the Telegram group. And then it did this kind of like, call it like the limp dick formation or whatever.
Yeah.
And I noticed that these moving averages are right here too. And I just bought some right here.
Are those is that the 20-week SMA and 21 EMA?
The 20 and 21 week SMA and EMA. And so I wish I bought a lot more. I didn't know everything I knew about it then. I just liked the idea of it being a fair launch, proof of work, and having the regulatory clarity that Bitcoin has, as far as, you know, less likely to get sued by the SEC or something. As somebody who just last bear market bought XRP just for the trade, but then they got you know, like around 20 cents and under, but then they got sued by the SEC and things got really weird. So I wanted to avoid anything like that this time around. So yeah, I mean, the fundamentals are super awesome, and it's been trading super cleanly. I mean, look at this chart; it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's I actually have a lot of comparisons. I like to tinker with it as well. A lot of comparisons to Bitcoin actually in its early days.
Kaspa has this very similar ascending channel that Bitcoin had early on too, which Kaspa now is kind of like outside of it, but it fell out of it here too. So we'll see. I think what I'm watching is these moving averages again right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, kind of interesting because there are a lot of points where it does hold it as support when
Certainly.
Yeah.
And if you look at your chart, the first thing I notice on just looking at the Kaspa one, not Bitcoin, is that back in, looks like maybe early Q4, Kaspa actually lost that channel as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Early Q4 of last year. Yeah, right around.
Are you talking about like right here?
Yep. So clear deviation,
exactly.
lost the trend line.
Exactly.
I mean, look, you have to allow time for deviations to play out. It certainly would be
Yeah.
fun and convenient if Kaspa were to reclaim that again. I wouldn't count it out quite yet, but I think
Yep.
ultimately as the asset matures, and I'm sure you would agree, it makes sense. I see you've got some like a logarithmic maybe curve or band
Yeah,
that you set, which
this
probably makes more sense to
regression
model.
channel, I think, because as the market cap grows, it takes more money to move it, just with
Yeah.
anything. So you can't expect the same velocity of growth forever. And then also, yeah, playing with the fractals, comparing to Cardano and Ethereum of last cycle.
Yeah.
We're basically going sideways here at a similar level, which was a full Fibonacci extension, drawn this way, basically. So
Hmm.
so it's kind of interesting. I mean, that it's going horizontal like this is encouraging. It's basically, to me, building a base for the next move up. And then you also have to consider that when Cardano, for example, was here, Bitcoin was already setting new highs. Like you can see, so this is September of 2023, or no, sorry, this is not. That's what it is on the Kaspa chart. But if we go back where Cardano was here, Bitcoin was already essentially setting new all-time highs.
Hmm.
And so at that point in the fractal of Cardano and Ethereum, yeah, Bitcoin was already up here. It was already way above its previous all-time high. So considering that, when you look at this fractal chart, you could even say that Kaspa is kind of ahead of schedule in a way.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you've noticed that or looked at that also.
Yeah, I mean I would largely agree with that. I love this fractal in this comparison. I have some similar ones of comparing Kaspa to sort of like the flagship altcoin projects of last cycle. Um, and fractals are never perfect, right? But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes they rhyme. And I mean, I would even potentially say you might be ahead with this fractal. Like it would make more sense to me that Kaspa hasn't really had its expansion up yet, like ETH and ADA did. Like it would almost require you to slide Kaspa back. So right now it'd be like in June.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on market caps too. Like, I mean, what did
Yeah,
ADA peak out at last cycle? Like was it
it's like
100 billion?
three. Oh yeah, like 90, 100 billion. Yeah,
Solana was 90 or 100 billion. I mean, right from now, it's about a 50x from where Caspa's at, give or take.
yeah. And so
Um,
Cardano, like that fractal right now, where Casp is going sideways, is right here.
yeah.
So let's see. This was January ish 2021. So if you look at Bitcoin, January 2021. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was up here. It was
And Bitcoin
40K
hasn't even broken through its all-time high yet. It's not even
currently.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so very different, very different. Yeah, I think to me, yeah, you could argue that it's ahead of schedule because once Bitcoin gets, you want to see it start getting like up here, and then Caspa is going to really be moving. All that liquidity is going to start flowing to other coins. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the if you were to just, and you don't have to do this, right? But you'll know what I'm talking about. As soon as Bitcoin starts pressuring its previous all-time high,
hmm
historically has been the best time to rotate into altcoins.
hmm
Anything that's not Bitcoin. Meme coins start to run, new projects really start to take off. Something like Kaspa, I assume, will do extremely well. My gut's telling me that Kaspa is probably going to be about like 25 or 30 cents by the time Bitcoin breaks through its all-time high.
hmm
And then the
hmm
ascent to $1, $2, $3 can really, the blow off top of this cycle can
But
potentially commence. But it's
yeah,
gonna be somewhat dependent on Bitcoin really pressuring its all-time high. I don't
yep,
think that this is different.
yep, definitely. Yeah, I mean, everybody's feeling maybe a little bit impatient, it seems like, and it's just important to consider where the market cycle is. Um, and also what's happening right now as far as Bitcoin, and it is getting that rejection off the 618. So, yeah, the question now for me is how low does it go? Does it just kind of do exactly what it did in here, where it I mean, we rejected here like we did last time at the same level. So now what happens here? Like a repeat of this, where it's literally quite a long time of some sort of sideways action, or is it a quicker, because the cycle is different and the Bitcoin halving is coming up? Is it a quicker move back to the upside type of thing? I guess that's the question. That should be the question everybody said right now.
This is actually this is a very interesting chart, and we spent a lot of time kind of tinkering with this and trying to curate where we potentially are in this cycle, right? So, I've seen a lot of comparisons to June of 2019, and people saying, and for good reason, right? Really good reason, just doing something like this, all-time high, retrace, and then we'll put on, like the golden pocket and, say, oh, this is, and mine's a little bit different. So it's really the, 0.618. So that would be the golden pocket. So a lot of people saying, oh, this is just June of 2019. Look at where we rejected from. But I'm more focused on the timing of how much time we've spent, in a bear market or reaccumulating, rather than just the level. It's the timing, because
Yeah.
I am a
Yep.
believer in the importance of the Bitcoin halvings. A lot of people kind of meme the 4-year cycle or the importance of the Bitcoin halving, but in my mind, it makes perfect sense that every 4 years, roughly, the miner block rewards get cut in half for Bitcoin,
Yep.
for Bitcoin
Yep.
miners. A lot of the sell pressure on the ask side of the books comes from Bitcoin miners having to offload their Bitcoin in order
Totally.
to support or subsidize their business, which they
Yep.
have to spend US dollars for. So if they have half of the amount of supply to dump onto the market to subsidize their business, and the demand for Bitcoin from the open market remains constant, if not hopefully increases, which I think it's going to, that's why we get these parabolas and these expansionary periods. So
Yep.
it's interesting to note this, but when you break it down and you look at the Bitcoin halvings and really what has happened after the Bitcoin halvings, right? These crazy expansionary periods after the Bitcoin halving, I look at it right now and I go, I can't even entertain the idea of, basically us being halfway up, which is kind of what happened in June of 2019, is we were basically halfway up, and then we spent another, 50% going down, and then bull market. That would potentially take us in a drawdown period
Yeah.
through summer of next year. And of course, we have to recognize as well that when miner block rewards get cut in half for Bitcoin in April, the cost of Bitcoin, kind of has to go up. Otherwise, these miners are going to be running a major deficit. Which again, that's the free market, right? Then
And that's the same for Kaspa too. And how the how it's programmed with Kaspa, right? The reductions happen every month,
yeah, that's fantastic.
and but it's equivalent roughly to having cumulatively like over a year, but it happens every month. So yeah, kind of a similar effect. It's almost like Bitcoin on steroids in that sense, in a way, where it's constantly cutting the emissions every month.
Yeah, what's the saying that the Kaspa community loved? Bitcoin was the test net for
Yeah,
Kaspa. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah, and like Cas was more Bitcoin than Bitcoin in a lot of ways.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's certainly. I mean, that's why I love it. I'm
yeah,
I guess a Bitcoin maxi.
yeah.
I love the properties. That's why I got into Bitcoin, was ultra, truly ultrasound money, right? Not like the ETH guys. But
Hmm.
I mean, really concrete store of value. Austrian economics and Kaspa. There's certainly a lot of overlap and at least inspiration drawn from Bitcoin.
Hmm.
But I mean, looking at
Totally.
this, right? There's a couple things that we noticed here. Looking at the previous two cycles, 90 days out from a Bitcoin halving, and right now we're a little bit less. Two things have happened in the previous cycle. In the 2016 through 2017 cycle, we pumped aggressively right into the Bitcoin halving, and then we had a slight drawdown right after, and then parabola. Obviously, we had COVID here, in 2020, but 90 days out from a Bitcoin halving, nuke, V recover, parabola. So right now, I've overlaid these two fractals. So basically, from this high set in 2013, and then the other one set from the high in 2017, both of them through the previous all-time high. And this is essentially what we get. I haven't massaged
Hmm.
these at all. I just drag and dropped. What
Hmm.
we'll notice is actually the timing of both cycles, where if from a timing perspective, we were to, say that this time isn't different, that would put the all-time high for Bitcoin the next global top for Bitcoin, somewhere between, I mean, really in Q4, either early Q4 or late Q4. And Jim, one thing,
Oh
actually,
wow.
I'm hearing some background noise on your end, like dishes. If you
Oh
could,
yeah, yeah.
there's some mic settings. If you could hit settings,
Uh-huh.
go to audio, and then I think
Uh-huh.
there's a reduce background noise button.
Okay, I just checked it. How's that? Any better?
That sounds much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay,
sounds
cool.
great. That sounds great. Perfect.
Cool.
So it from a timing perspective, if this time isn't different and we kind of either pump or dump or maybe just move sideways the 3 months before a Bitcoin halving and recognize what comes after a Bitcoin halving being, this green area, the parabolas, um, that would basically put us into price discovery somewhere out end of this year, Q4 of this year, and Bitcoin all-time high sometime in 2025. So,
Mhm.
the idea that we're, you know,
Gonna do that.
basically rejecting here, it doesn't really
Yeah.
align with previous cycles, because,
Yeah.
also from a timing perspective, if you look at how much time we spent accumulating, and I'll actually just, I'll remove these, I'll save this just like to contextualize it, right? Let's draw out like where was the despair for Bitcoin, right? Like where was the bear market range low? Where was like the deep value area? And as far as I can tell, the deep value area for both um, was basically under these lines, right? You can kind of identify your bull market range. This was sort of your euphoria. Everyone's excited. It's clearly a bull market. I'll highlight
Mhm.
those in green, and anything underneath that is, accumulation. And the
Mhm.
big difference that I notice is that, again, from a timing perspective, from when we, entered the despair mode to when a new bull market really started, and when we never went back into the deep value zone, under this bear market, it was about 500 days. The only difference between these
Yeah.
2 cycles here is that Bitcoin, in 2019 was quick to exit and deviate above, but then it ultimately came back in, dipped back into the deep value zone, and then we had a bull market. If this was the same, we would have probably gone up here early
Yeah.
on, come
Yep.
back, and then
Totally.
exited. But I'm looking at this from a timing perspective again,
Yeah. Yeah,
really
no, that's a good
important.
point, and I kind of agree. Even though we just hit the same level, I think the timing is very different, and so it's hard to imagine that it pulls back as steeply. And then plus that was the COVID pandemic. So
For
that's
sure.
that's why I was like in August of 2023 when people were really looking at that, to the past at that COVID drawdown, thinking we were going to get some massive dump. I,
Mhm.
I kind of looked at it like, well, we're kind of just oscillating around the 20 and 20 week SMA, EMAs, and it's not that different. If you just block the whole COVID pandemic out of your mind and what it did to the charts, then we probably are at a bottom right now.
For sure.
So yeah, so I'm looking at the current price action like, yeah, we just hit the same level, but I don't think it's going to have the same reaction necessarily. I think it might have some sort of pullback. We're getting a little bit of a pullback right now, but I'm not convinced it's quite as severe as what we saw last time. So, but it is natural for us to get some sort of reaction at that level for
Oh,
a
for
bit.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure, and I think that the real fun starts when you flip that level, because as
Yeah,
we
yeah,
if we draw these fibs back
totally.
on here, it's it's kind of that's it, like, when you flip that 1.618, uh,
Yep.
there's just not a whole lot more to, you know,
Yep.
it's gonna be lights out, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
There's gonna
game
be a
time.
lot of people realizing that they kind of missed it or they were waiting too long.
For sure, for sure,
Yeah,
and I think it'll happen quickly, once we
yeah,
get it back above that level, but
yeah,
this was a chart that I curated a little while ago. I know you've seen this one. I think you commented back or we were engaging on Twitter about this, and actually it's a little different, I guess contextually, right? It would make the most sense to draw similarities between something like Kaspa and Bitcoin, both proof of work. Obviously, Kaspa, I don't know if we want to call it like the grandchild, the superior grandchild of Bitcoin, or the prodigious grandchild or whatever. But either way, why would I compare something like Kaspa to Solana? Well, they're nothing alike, right? I mean, literally nothing alike, but I don't really care. I'm looking at this from a technical perspective, right?
Mhm.
Two
Yeah.
assets can be nothing alike. They can share very little commonalities, but price action is price action. Whether we're trading, junk bonds or we're trading altcoins, fractals always play. It doesn't matter what it is, because there's, it's like the Wall Street cheat sheet, right? The
Mhm.
psychology of a bubble or, an asset as it takes flight. So when I look at something like a Solana, and I say Solana was really the premier altcoin of last cycle.
Yep.
It reached almost 100 billion market cap. I think it was maybe the second or third best performer, like from launch. I think maybe second to like Matic or whatever. But either way, it was one of the flagship projects of last cycle. And I'm looking at Solana and projects like Solana that really did well last cycle, and just looking from a market adoption perspective. Nothing fundamentally, but how did the market trade it last cycle when it was young before it went crazy? And I see a lot of similarities between Kaspa's early price action, which I still consider us to be in, and something like a Solana. And I'm going to elaborate on that right now. So, what we see right here, really to start, and maybe I'll just zoom out a little bit, is you get this early, this early pump, which is like the gym ski bum early adopters. Nobody knows what it is. No one cares quite yet. But this whole price action right here, this very early on, people, the visionaries, right? They see it before anybody else. These are like true micro caps. And then after that, we start to get this, this little bit of attention right here. You get like the first pump catches, still early adopters, they take note to it. And then you get a bullish reaccumulation pattern. Okay. And where I like to draw these fibs is basically from, the first swing high, when, it becomes, oh, this isn't just another project. This is the real deal. People start looking into it. You know, they finally make some money. It starts to gain some traction amongst communities. But I like to take my fib extension here from the first swing high before a sell off to ultimately the first swing low where that bottoms out. Okay. So now looking at this and just comparing it and contrasting it to Solana, it's interesting to see how these fibs play. You will see these fibs play time and time again in a bull market, where you break out of an accumulation range, you tag or flip the 1.618, and then the 2.618 and 3.618 play perfectly. So where I think we're at right now, and also from a market cap perspective, is basically Solana in late Q1 of 2021. Right after
Mhm.
its bullish reaccumulation pattern, you had this next ascent, and it flipped its 1.618 and reaccumulated, and it danced on top of it for a while before the next leg up. That was between a 2 and a 5 billion market cap. That's basically where Caspa's at right now. Okay. People get kind of bored. They say, oh, is that it? They don't expect what comes next. And it's hard to, it's hard to imagine that
Yep.
something that feels like it's up a lot already is really going to go up more. But then you have to
Yep.
consider, like, how few exchanges is Caspa actually listed on?
Yep.
How few people truly understand the technology? I mean,
Yep.
it's actually, you're still very early, unironic.
Everything always looks obvious in hindsight. It's kind of I keep saying on Twitter, let your conviction be your compass, because really that's what it is. Like nobody's gonna um just like put it right in your mouth. Like if
Yeah.
no one's gonna like feed it to you just like so you can have full confidence. You really have to understand what it is and why there's value there. And yeah, one of the early things I realized, and I didn't see it right away at 0.005 cents, but you have like Vitalik Buterin of Ethereum
Mhm.
uh, using the Ghost protocol, which was developed by the Kaspa devs, like way back. You have
Mhm.
the official Bitcoin account in like 2013 tweeting about work that Aviv Zohar and Yonatan Sampolinsky did, and these things create an effect in people's minds, because there are a lot of people who haven't even seen those yet. Like, and I even find myself, I used to share them a lot, like over, in 2023 when I discovered them, and for a while after, but I find myself even sharing them less now because it's like the same thing. A lot of my followers have seen them. But my reach is only so far, and there's a lot of people out there who haven't seen that before. And the more people share that, and new people see that, they're like, oh, snap, there is actually something here. And there's a lot of people out there who have yet to really see what Kaspa is and even understand what Bitcoin is and why Kaspa is actually valuable, because it's very similar, except for the fact that it kind of is more Bitcoin than Bitcoin. It sounds like kind of maybe hard to believe that, but when you look at the Bitcoin white paper and see that it was supposed to be digital eCash, it really doesn't live up to that. And that's why the Bitcoin maxis have kind of flipped over to this store of value narrative like digital gold, because it really isn't what it was meant to be. And it never will be without the Lightning Network or some L2 scaling solution. Whereas Kaspa on the base layer is running currently at 1 block per second, and then on a test net is running at 10 blocks, and it's going well, and it's going to be rolled out to the mainnet soon. And it's really going to be just like truly a decentralized fair launch network that can be actually used as a currency, especially once smart contracts roll out and then you have stable coins or the potential for them. So it really is game changing in the context of how it all started, which was with Bitcoin. And I think when people, starts to register for people like who are busy chasing like meme coins and whatever, Kaspa, I mean, not anything against that if you want to make some money doing that, but like, you know, some people want to put their money in something and just not be day trading and just be able to sleep well and not worry about it. Because a lot of the other things you can make money on, but they come at a higher risk that it might just fizzle out or it's just a trade, you know, quick trick.
So. A lot of really great points there. A lot of really great points there. And I have a question for you. Not that you would have anything concrete, but when do you anticipate smart contracts rolling out for Kaspa?
I mean, I know that part of the plan has been to really scale up the blocks per second, because they want to have this MEV resistant capability for the smart contracts, because that's an issue on Ethereum where bots are like front running transactions and making a little bit of a profit by front running people, which adds to the transaction cost for people. So they want to prevent that. They want to nip that in the bud. And I think, you know, if you can, there's any takeaway from what you observe about the people who are working on Kaspas, they want to do things the right way. They don't want to just rush things, and they're not just going to do things half-assed. So I think they want to make sure that they have the groundwork to do the MEV resistant smart contracts. They were talking about two options going forward. One was to I think like piggyback on Ethereum and kind of use that in the meantime, or just develop their own native smart contracts. And I'm not exactly sure, like it seems like maybe they're going the native route, because it's I think they could have done the piggyback on Ethereum quicker if they wanted to, like kind of plug into that. I think I think they're trying to do the native Kaspa MEV resistant smart contracts. That if you watch interviews with Jonathan Sampolinsky, he said that a long time ago that his main focus is actually on smart contracts like MEV resistance. So I think in the background he's probably working on that, and like, you know, and I believe that'll be
this cycle. Do you think that'll be this cycle or next cycle for Kaspa?
I don't know. I mean, I hope it's this cycle, but I mean, honestly, I don't feel like it necessarily needs that to get to where it should be, because it already is in a lot of respects pretty groundbreaking as it is. I think that's just going to add more long-term viability to its like function, its usability. But it already is like a better Bitcoin in a lot of ways, assuming the network is secure. It just is, because it was a big part of the value of Bitcoin was that it was just gifted to the world. It was fair launched. People just started mining it and turning on the network, and there was no like fundraise or VCs involved. And so it's really just a technology that was put out there to really just remove the middleman from having control over financial transactions, from people, you know, saying, oh, you can't give so-and-so money, or we're going to take the money in your bank account and shut it down, or whatever. Or whatever it is. I mean, Kaspa's already the same in that sense. It was launched super fairly.
I
And
think that
so, yeah.
one of our team members, Sisu, who was very early to Kaspa as well, I think he
Hmm.
mentioned to me that in regards to this fair launch, you couldn't even mine Kaspa in the very early days. Like everybody, you didn't you need a like a new miner or something like that? And
Yeah, well, early days it was CPU and GPU mining, and they chose, yeah, their launch was interesting because they chose an algorithm um, for which no existing ASIC miners were on the market for. Like some coins would launch with like, oh, you could just, yeah, get a miner like that's already on the market and start mining it.
Mhm,
If it was like an ASIC, but the way they did it was they chose an algorithm so that, like, say, like Bitcoin miners couldn't just jump on and start hogging all the hash rate or whatever and getting a big chunk of the supply. They
yeah,
made it so that anybody from their home computer, really, or just like inexpensive machines, could just start mining it, and that way, a lot of the supply, which was rapidly released, like super quickly released. Like if you look at the emissions schedule, it's very quick, and it's going to be all circulating by 2037. Whereas Bitcoin is going to be like, after 2100, it's still going to be like being mined. Um,
mhm,
so it's a totally different, yeah, strategy in that sense. Difference. That's a difference in compared to Bitcoin. So for a good 18 months or so, yeah, it was being mined by just inexpensive machines that anybody could get their hands on some of the supply. And then eventually, like Bitmain and one of the other ones started making ASIC miners. So so yeah, it was a little different, but yeah, pretty fair as well.
yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I look at this chart here, and this is my roadmap that I'm choosing to follow for what I would consider to be like the first cycle. I think we're gonna enter some sort of, I mean, not to make it a meme, right? But like a super cycle where I don't anticipate, you know, Caspa to have some sort of drawdown after the top like this, you know, just zooming out. I think that it's going to be a much different looking cycle than what happened here. But I am fully expecting these fibs to play out. You know, I think that we'll see a major top right around here. So I think that these fibs will play. I think that we're going to see
Hmm.
the next level up is going to be, you know, 30, 35 cents,
Yeah.
similar market cap, you know, little, you know, reaccumulation, consolidation. Then
Yep.
Caspa goes to, you know, a lot of people front run a dollar, they get blown through, and we go to, you know, a dollar 30, dollar 50, probably spend more time reaccumulating between there, maybe 60 cents even. So big drawdown. And then I think, you know, you start to go up again. And I think
Yep.
you're going to see this big, you know,
Yeah.
logarithmic regression
And
curve.
what's crazy is, I mean, those are such massive moves from where we are and where we have been.
Mhm.
And it's going to be easy for a lot of people to fumble that. Just, it's like, because the market moves in such a different time frame, like, than our minds work, and
Yeah.
it's just so hard for people to sit through. Like when you look at the charts, like after it already happened, it was like, oh yeah, that was obvious, like that was the obvious play. But
Yeah.
when you're in it, it's a totally different game. Like you might capitulate at the lows, you might take profit way too early, people might fud you out, like, and it's just, to me, it's just the easiest thing to just buy during the fear, buy when it's boring, and do the opposite of what your body and mind are telling you.
Yeah.
And
You got to
then wait,
fade, you
just,
have to fade yourself.
yeah,
That's how I say.
and then just wait for Bitcoin to set new highs. Like it'll happen at some point. I mean, I went through some of the bear markets where, like, I didn't understand it enough, and it was still early enough where you did wonder, or I did, like, oh, is Bitcoin done? Like, is it just gonna like fizzle out? And I went through that doubt before. I don't have that for whatever reason. I mean, because I've already been through it. I don't have that doubt anymore. I kind of just assume that Bitcoin's going to set new highs. But I mean, I think there probably are people out there who just don't actually believe that. Like maybe it is. I think most of us on Twitter probably at this point who are here probably believe it's going to set new highs. But I mean, there are people, you just meet people in daily life like, oh, Bitcoin, isn't it super, like, doesn't it just like go up and down a lot? Like they don't know
Yeah.
anything about
Yeah.
it, and it's just like, I heard it was really volatile or something. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's good for making money.
Exactly.
So,
People view the volatility as a negative.
yeah, yeah.
but it's actually, I mean, it's a sign of
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
something isn't high demand, and two,
yeah,
it's, it's high growth or high potential for growth.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, what you're talking about, like fading yourself, is a very real thing. I mean, I've been watching these fibs, intently, because I'm convinced that this fractal is going to play out. I've been studying these charts hours and hours on end. I recognize this. I've been through market cycles before. I understand, like you said, like the volatility is a good thing, but there's times when you begin to question yourself. And I mean, even recently, the amount of stabs that we've had at this 1.618, this blue line, look how many times it's had to be defended, but
yep.
it's being respected. I mean, especially right here on, I mean, this was early this week, and we dropped down to 9.5. I was like, man, I wonder if my fib is giving out. What the heck? But then
Hmm.
look,
Yeah,
bullish
yeah,
reclaim. So I look at this and I go, this is concrete, man. I'm not gonna. And by the way, I bought more down here. I bought a
yeah,
lot more down here. And
yeah. It's
the
not
reason I
bad.
bought more is I had some ETH, and I've been tracking the Kaspa ETH pair
Oh,
pretty
okay.
intently as well. And I was like,
Potentially
this
a good
thing is
trade.
completely bottomed, man. Actually,
Nice,
look,
nice.
that'd be fun to. We
Yeah,
could
check
pull
it
this
out.
up quick and look up Kaspa
Which
ETH.
reminds me too, the Kaspa Bitcoin pair is looking really, really solid also right now.
Both
Yeah,
really, really solid. I know we've
yeah,
gone back and forth about, some of these fibs before on Twitter, but what I noticed here is that Kaspa ETH likes to bleed for between like 60 and 70 days. So I was watching it actually up here, and I was like, okay, don't FOMO in, wait. We see a clear pattern here where Kaspa rockets up against ETH, and then it bleeds for 65 days, and then we get the next leg up. And I said, all right, on that 65th day, I had a trading view alert go off, and it was like, shove your ETH into Kaspa right now. So I shoved some ETH into Kaspa at that low, which is fantastic. And I think, honestly, I mean, I think this is going to continue to play, and it might take a while. Who knows? Maybe it takes all year. Maybe it happens quickly. I don't know. But I think that next leg up for Kaspa ETH, I mean, really is going to make some noise, and people will begin to question, why am I holding Ethereum or something like that when Kaspa just pulled another 300% move out against ETH. And the same thing
nice. Yeah,
could be said for Kaspa Bitcoin. Same exact
yep,
pattern, by the way. Look at this.
yep,
65 days of reaccumulation, and look at where it tops every single time, right? It's been
yep,
topping right at this 3.414 fib,
yep,
same exact thing after 65 days. So I mean, look at this. You're still early to this rotation. If you own Bitcoin, look at where you're at potentially. You're staring down the barrel of a 250% move potentially against Bitcoin. So if
yeah,
Bitcoin goes to
yeah,
50, 60K, what does that imply for Kaspa?
yeah. And also, by the way, on your Kaspa Bitcoin pair, you can multiply times 100 million here, and you'll get the Satoshi's value.
Oh, that's
Um,
great. Okay.
yeah, so that's a lot easier to kind of see where you're at and get a concrete number there. And then also it is still Bitcoin in Satoshis. But yeah, you can see here that you can see that on the 2021 week SMA and EMA, the green and red lines, it's been really holding that. So I think people are flipping between the two, and I think they are looking because it's uncanny how even just very clean this chart is too.
And you'll notice
So
that the previous two both had deviations below that EMA band, or SMA and EMA band. We had that this time as well, where
yep,
price dipped below it,
yep.
reclaimed it, and then as a rocket ship.
Yeah,
Where we're
exactly,
at right now.
exactly. So
Yep.
we did, and there was this flash crash. I don't know if do you know if that flash crash we had was on spot exchanges too, or or was that only on perps? Because or I mean that was an interesting flash crash, but we really dipped down on that. Also, yeah, on the USD pair and the
I don't know
Bitcoin.
what I make of it, because I know that on MEXC it didn't register
It did
at
not
all.
make see, yeah, exactly.
So
So yeah, but
I
either
don't know
way,
what that was.
we got
I
some
almost
sort
feel
of
like it
big
was
dip.
I almost feel like it was like an error or something. It was
Yeah.
very bizarre,
And
but
on the USD pair, we actually hit the bull market support band
mm,
much more cleanly. So that was interesting where it got bought up. And but yeah, also you can see each of these rallies went up to the 3.618, 3.618. So if we get to the 3.618 again, it would be 1,000 satoshis. Which, hey, I don't know. We'll have to see where Bitcoin is at that time, but that would be nice.
well, right. I mean, let's extrapolate that out. Let's make the assumption that we're 75 days out from a Bitcoin halving. Bitcoin's at what, 40, 41 and a half, 42? What's it at? I see your screen, 41.6. Oh, we're up a little bit. Okay, so Bitcoin's at 41.6. All right. Let's assume that after the Bitcoin halving, so within the next 4 months, potentially, Bitcoin's at 55 or 60K. All right, which would be pretty in line with what's happened, right after Bitcoin halving, as we start to press up and pressure the all-time high pretty shortly after. So if Bitcoin's at 55K and Kaspa BTC goes to 1,000 Satoshis, Jim, can you help me with the math on that one?
Geez, I don't know. We'd have to maybe use, what is that, Coin Market Cap to like convert it or something. It's probably some sort of converter.
That would be a 50-cent Kaspa potentially. If Bitcoin's at 55K and
Okay.
Kaspa BTC goes to 1,000 Satoshis, that'd be about 50 cents Kaspa. If
Okay.
Bitcoin goes to 50K instead, that'd be a 45-cent Kaspa, give or
Okay.
take.
Cool.
Which is,
And
more or less in line with my expectations, truthfully.
hey, and who knows? Maybe it could be 70K, and
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see where it is. That's the fun of it. We don't know. It's a moving target. We had this big cup and handle. It's funny. I remember in here people were really, really doomy about what was going on. But it was so interesting because we had this like really beautiful cup and handle, and then look what happened. And I even tweeted about this, like just talking about how fearful everybody was right in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at this, we just off to the races. Now we set new all-time highs, and yeah, we can see if it's got the juice to go higher and look at some of these upper fib levels, and then just obviously that's gonna translate into crypto. But yeah, what's interesting too is if you look at some of the previous stock market rallies and how they correlated with Bitcoin price action, I don't know if I have like anything really pulled up ready to go, but so I'll just explain it. Basically, like S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, I believe, like kind of tested its all-time high like a few times, and Bitcoin didn't really get going until maybe, for example, like it might have done something like this, and then it like took off, and really it was around like this point, like on the third test, that's when Bitcoin really started taking off.
So Bitcoin
So
lags the S&P 500.
yeah, I think people want that extra assurance that the S&P
Mhm.
500 and like the Dow Jones and the stock markets just in general just really actually going to break out. So yeah, it's like one of those things where the more times a level gets tested, the more likely it's going to happen. And I think then people might feel more comfortable just putting their money in and taking that, I guess, as confirmation. Some people might like to wait for quote unquote confirmation, which I don't know. I'd rather just buy the fear. But
Yeah. I actually
but
have
people,
an interesting chart
uh,
describing exactly what you just mentioned. I'll let you
uh,
finish, but it's about Bitcoin lagging. You're gonna
yeah.
like it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that's basically the idea. I just think that people are gonna. It may not happen right away. Everybody's like, oh well, what the heck, man? The stock market is hitting new all-time highs, and Bitcoin is like going down or going sideways. Well, yeah, it's because people want that extra reinsurance. That's what it is. They just want to know that level is going to get broken, and then they're just going
Yeah.
to put their money in and be like, okay, I guess it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. It would certainly be an additional point of confluence to see equities rally to some of these levels that you have marked out.
Yep.
3.618 would be pretty crazy. That might take a little bit of time, but I could definitely see the 1.618. I don't think
Yeah.
that level is safe by any means.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Go ahead. You had a
I'm gonna
chart. You said.
So this is on the left I have Bitcoin here, and on the right I have the Nasdaq. And we've been working on this theory here because Bitcoin for a while that we're effectively just doing what legacy markets did back in like June, July, August. And if you've been in crypto for a while, you'll know that these moves happen quicker in crypto. Like dumps happen a lot quicker. Um, but I'm looking at this and I see a lot of similarities, and I think that something like this actually has the chance of playing out, where we've basically dipped back in to this region right here. So the level I'm talking about is the last, this blue box, which was the last low of the bull market set both for the Nasdaq and for crypto, for Bitcoin. And that was the last low of the bull market before we had a high time frame break of structure and a bear market. Okay, so same thing right here. So the last low, break of structure, bear market on both of them. You know, it was just like it was a terrible 2022. Everybody remembers it. But when I look at this chart and I say, okay, this is a really important level because this is like a range low reclaim on both, you know, the S&P 500, and I could probably remove this purple. We don't really need this. You know, we can just look at these levels here. When I look at this, I say this is a reclaim of a bull market range low. And what we saw, interesting, that point of fear you were talking about, Jim, where everyone was freaking out down here, you know, like it's completely over, the recession, la da 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 da. You know, we actually had that here on Bitcoin as well. You know, we did have that same deviation. So the big question is, was that it? You know, are we about to run it back now? Are we just basically lagging, you know, legacy indexes by a few months, and Bitcoin's about to more or less complete this fractal? I mean, who would have thought down here that we were about to go to an all-time high within a quarter?
Yeah. I mean, it's been
crazy.
look at that. That's a massive, that's just like an arrow shot to the moon right there.
Let's have some fun with it. Let's pull a fractal up, right? I mean, what if Bitcoin is just doing what QQQ did right here? You know, I mean, this is, I just overlaid it, right? Look at that.
Yeah.
Why is it not possible? You know, it's,
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It could happen quick, especially when we're looking at that Kaspa Bitcoin Satoshi's pair. If Bitcoin starts moving, I'm sure everything else is gonna, well, it may lag, other coins may lag Bitcoin. Sometimes that happens, but once, say Bitcoin gets to like its all-time highs, and then altcoins start pumping, Kaspa starts pumping very quickly on that Bitcoin pair. It could be at 1,000 Satoshis or whatever, you know, and then you got to do the math for like 70K to 1,000 Satoshis on the Kaspa
well, let's
pair.
do it. Let's do it right now. So 70,000 times 0.12345, 63 cents, give or take.
Cool. Yeah,
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I mean,
but I don't think that's the blow off top. Actually, I don't even think that's close.
No, it's not because the party's just getting started at that point. I mean, you got to be,
you start seeing exchange listings, you know, larger exchange listings, maybe a Coinbase.
And my whole theory on that is that because Kaspa was fair launched, a lot of the listings that happen, they do them with coins that are basically given to them for the for the liquidity of the pairs, because a lot of projects will have tokens or coins reserved literally for that purpose for listings. So the pro and con with Kaspa is that because it was fair launched, it doesn't have those reserves to pay for listings and to give exchanges the liquidity they need to, you know, have deep enough books for their customers. So the bigger exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, they need to have enough liquidity to handle the volume that they're going to do. So what my theory, speculating on what their game plan is, because obviously at this point they know about Kaspa and they know it's, you know, a gem, I think, in my opinion. They're probably accumulating it, and they're probably going to let the price run up and then list it, because all the liquidity that they get at lower market caps, it's worth whatever it's going to be later on, like 10x. And so their liquidity is going to be deep at a fraction of the cost at that point. So they're going to let it run up. They can match, you know, Kaspa with the USD or whatever, you know, and just have really deep books, and at a fraction of the cost, versus like trying to list it right now. Their books aren't going to be as deep as if they let it run up, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I also think there's going to be an issue, which is a very bullish catalyst for Kaspa, that exchanges, they have to go and buy Kaspa, you know, like they're not going to be given Kaspa in a conventional sense. So I remember even when there were some, you know, people were panic withdrawing their Kaspa from MEXC. It was like, well, what if they run out of Kaspa? Then MEXC, the exchange, has to go to the open market and start trying to buy Kaspa, or talking with miners to buy Kaspa to, you know, work on these withdrawals. So it's just everything. It's just this bullish storm, you know, as Kaspa continues to grow. These exchanges integrate it.
It's just a matter of being patient. You know, they're doing everything the right way. They're not cutting any corners, and it's like geared towards maximum sustainability, in my opinion. It's not just like a quick, flame that's going to burn out, like a big explosion that's just going to like crumble. I think they're just doing everything super. It's like a slow burning, whatever. It's really built to last, the whole thing. So it's just a matter of being patient and letting it run its course.
Yeah.
And even still, it's just been like creaming everything. Like it's one of the top performers in the last year and 2 years. So
it's just crazy that I mean, it's not even. It's just still so young, people, they can't wrap their heads around, exponential returns, on a logarithmic scale. They say, oh, it's at 2 billion. I missed it. How are you going to feel when it's at 100?
Yeah, no, it's just, you got to look. Yeah. I mean, people are forgetting, they just got to look at the market caps of what things reached the last cycle. Like 2 and 3 billion is really not much for crypto if it's got strong fundamentals. And, so you really got to just go back to the cycle peak and look at the last one and see what the valuations were for things with similar fundamentals, and then compare that to Kaspa and ask yourself, like, if you have conviction in it, because that's what it comes down to. Nobody's gonna tell you everything's gonna be okay. It's kind of like you gotta look at it, you gotta understand what it is, then look at other things, and either just ride it out or not, and that's up to everyone to decide for themselves.
Very true. Well, I've made my decision. It sounds like you have too. But guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. I think Jim and I said before we went on, we were going to try to maybe make it like 25 minutes, and we went for almost an hour. We were cooking. So
cool.
Good synergy. I'm sure that Jim and I will find time to run it back and provide some more updates. Really, really fun, Jim, having you on. Really great.
And you guys can find me on Twitter. The handle right now is cryptographer with a UR at the end. CRYPTOGRAF.
We're going to put it down in the link. It's going to be the first link below, guys. Give Jim a follow on Twitter. And also the second link is going to be his YouTube. All right. He posts some great content as well. So definitely follow him and stay tuned. And you can find Jim on our spaces too. He's, he comes in once in a while and hangs out, but he's the guy to follow for Kaspa. If you're interested in learning about Kaspa, if you want, guidance or hand holding through this bull market, he's your guy. He's been leading the Kaspa community for longer than anybody that I've seen, and I've been following it for a while. So definitely give Jim a follow. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Please like the stream and also subscribe to the channel. And again, follow Jim on all of his social medias in the link down below. Guys, thanks so much for being here, and take care.
Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.